I know you didn't ask for this, but on March 31st, 2026, a 25-year-old sold $5 million worth of skincare in an afternoon. She did a little PR, some press meetings, influencer mailers, a billboard in New York City that revealed itself piece by piece. Pretty cool. But none of that is why it sold out. None of that is what drove $5 million in a single afternoon. But it is something that's actually far older than TikTok. It's far older than the internet even. And even older than any marketing course or business school curriculum ever assembled. It's a knowledge so old and so deliberately kept from public view that most of the people who have wielded it throughout history never even wrote it down. They pass it on, in rooms that most people were not even allowed inside. And today I am going to show you exactly what that is. But first, I need to tell you something about the way human beings make decisions. This is going to help you understand everything I'm saying throughout this video because human psychology. Welcome to the Persuasion Society. My name is Gabrielle, and today we are going to do a deep dive into something that looks like a TikTok influencer story, but is actually one of the most effective demonstrations of this kind of secret, ancient knowledge. So here's the first thing she did, and I want you to hold on to a question that I'm about to ask you as I tell this story. It's going to be relevant, so stay with me. The question is, why does this work at all? And the answer to the question is kind of where the real knowledge really lives. Cut to Alix Earle, and listen, if you're not familiar with her, obviously she's all over the internet. And over the past few years, she really built some of the most loyal audience followers on the internet. And she mostly did this by being just aggressively and kind of like almost uncomfortably honest about the good and the bad. And in this case, her skin journey and her acne. Before she had her own product, before she had all these partnerships and been on these TV shows or had any business reason to really do it, she showed her actual skin on camera, like the breakouts and the bad days, the things that just didn't work to help her skin, and the products that did. She handed her audience something most creators just never really give the truth about, and something she was maybe even embarrassed by, and that matters. So hold on to that because we're going to come back to that here in a moment. Then in early 2026, this year, the background of her videos started kind of incorporating some bottles without any labeling. They were on her counter, they were on her shelves. Nobody really knew what these products were, and to my knowledge, no one really said anything. She definitely didn't say anything. Then all of a sudden, an Instagram account appeared, and it was really just a handle that says, "WTF is Alix doing?" At first, there were no posts and no explanation, no bios, just kind of a lot of followers, by hundreds of thousands, just rushing to follow this account. They knew she was up to something. What really perplexed people, in my opinion here, is there was this open-ended question, and it was just wildly unbearable for people. You end up asking yourself, hold on, what the fuck is Alix doing? By the time she launched Real Actives on March 31st, she had already put quite the spell on her audience. She had made people so desperate to buy something they could not even see yet from a brand whose name they didn't even know anything about. I don't even know if they knew the brand name yet, for most of this journey. This girl, okay, this is crazy, but she made $1 million in under 5 minutes and $5 million by the end of the afternoon. She even sold out of the product in one day. Now here is where it gets interesting. Beneath the surface of everything she built, 3 forces were operating here, the kind that run underneath human behavior, whether we are aware of them or not. So write these 3 energetic forces down so you can use them to your advantage the next time you want to sell something. All right, here we go. Reciprocity, the liking principle, and the Zeigarnik effect. The first two you may have encountered before. The third one's probably something you're not super familiar with, but you're going to want to carry it with you when you leave here today. Because once you see how it works, because it is a little secret principle that nobody told you, you will find it operating in the decisions you have made your entire life without ever knowing why. For years before Alix Earle asked anyone to buy anything from her, she really gave to her audience. She gave vulnerability, she gave honesty, she was just giving, She gave that kind of content that made people feel like, I guess they had a friend who actually understood what it felt like to, in her case, maybe not want to leave the house because of her skin, or just be kind of embarrassed or uncomfortable, or just kind of wish it was different. And I've spent years studying how influence actually works. And reciprocity is one of the oldest and most powerful forces in human social behavior. When someone gives to us genuinely, we feel an almost biological pull to give back. Not because we're told to, because it's actually hardwired into us. Alix spent years making deposits she never collected on. In her case, in the form of content, in the form of get ready with me's, and just kind of literally spilling her guts about her life. And by the time she launched a physical product, her audience just did not feel like customers. I think they really felt like people who finally had a chance to give something back to someone who had given them so much. At the same time, they're also giving back to themselves, and they're feeling seen and they're feeling heard in the product. Now, remember the truth she was embarrassed by? That is reciprocity in its most elemental form. She gave something that kind of cost her. She's very public about her life. Maybe not her whole life, but I don't even follow this girl, but I probably know more about random things about Alix Earle than maybe some celebrities. And people felt the difference between that and every other creator who kind of just is only giving polished and perfection. And yeah, she seemed a little bit different. Now, the second force, the one that's a bit quieter than reciprocity, a little bit more subtle, and in my view is the one that made everything else possible. And without it, none of what came after would have mattered. But here's the thing. This is like sales 101, but we buy from people we like. And in order to like someone, you have to kind of bring them into your aura, your circle, your energy to some extent. That's why brands that are backed by content creators who have built an audience where they've genuinely shared their life are wildly successful. Not always, but it's this weird phenomenon that, man, wouldn't you rather support, let's say, Alix Earle over just some company that you don't even know who's behind it? You don't even know what they stand for. You don't know anything about the products or the ingredients or what they care about and who they are. So I think it's going to shape a lot of the future. And she's definitely somebody people like. The research on this is really overwhelming. It's something that's been studied in sales for years and years and years. Likability is one of the strongest predictors of whether we say yes to a request. And likability is built by, consistency through perceived similarity and just genuine warmth. I remember I was moving to Nashville a few years back. I live in Europe now, but I was interviewing realtors, and literally the second this guy, he was the first one I was interviewing, stepped out of his car, I could see him through my kitchen window. I was like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. He looked like a sleazy car salesman, and he might have been a very nice guy, but he just did everything wrong, and I hated him, and I didn't go with him. I'm sure he's a very kind gentleman, but I didn't like him. So I didn't buy what he was selling, basically. And Alix Earle's really no different. She's not really selling you the dream. She's likable, and she's selling you her messy life and how she fixed it and how it led to this dream outcome of being able to leave the house with confidence and certainty and just, in her case, kind of like a little bit of a girl boss energy vibe. That's just not a weakness anymore. Like, telling your vulnerable truth of it all is the entire foundation of her brand, because nothing builds genuine connection faster than the courage to be visibly imperfect. And people like her for that. And I don't blame them. It's nice. It's refreshing to not, I mean, for many, many years, Instagram was just a completely curated landscape of unattainability. And, you know, she did a great job of saying, like, I like to be polished, but I'm not always that way, and that's not always the reality. But now let me get to the third energetic force here, because this is the one behind, you know, the mystery of it all, the mystery account, the unlabeled bottles, the billboard that withheld its answer piece by piece until people, you know, could not stop thinking about it. That's called the Zeigarnik effect. In the 1920s, a psychologist named Bluma Zeigarnik was sitting in a cafe in Vienna when she noticed something very unusual about her waiter. He could hold every open order in his head without writing a single thing down. And listen, some waiters do this. I never could do this, but cheers to you if you have this talent. And listen, the tables that had not been paid, he already knew. The dishes still in the kitchen, he had tabs on mentally. He carried it all out effortlessly. Listen, you should try this. The next time you go into a restaurant and you see a waiter, you know, who never writes anything down, you could be like, hey, what did your table order 10 minutes ago? And they'd be like, I have no idea. They're gone. They checked out. It's out of my brain. So anyways, Bluma Zeigarnik took this back to her laboratory, her observation, and she gave participants a series of tasks and interrupted half of them before they could finish. Later, when she asked, you know, what people actually remembered, the interrupted tasks were recalled almost twice as often as the completed ones. The mind keeps an open file on everything unfinished. This is the key, guys. Oh my gosh, this is so fantastic. It cannot release what it has not, resolved. This is why you probably hang on to your ex and you always want closure and things like this. It's because you have this open-ended question, this open loop in your mind that your head just keeps going back to. And basically, your brain just keeps returning to that open question again and again until it receives an answer. Any answer, but an answer. So when you saw WTF is Alix doing, that was, you know, not the brand name, but that was a sales tactic, like a marketing tactic. It was just this unresolved question placed inside the minds of millions of people. Every day, it stayed unanswered. The file grew larger. By the time the product launched, the answer had been anticipated for so long that buying it felt less like a decision and honestly more like a relief. People are like, okay, finally I know what it is. I can get in line. Let me just add this to my cart. I'm excited. And listen, Alix is not the first person to do this. Not even close. It's just that no one's told you of this tactic. And this was done in New York City over 150 years ago by a man who never heard of a TikTok or algorithms or probably even behavioral psychology. And it worked the same exact way. In the 1940s, a showman named P.T. Barnum put up posters across New York City. Just 3 words, no explanation, no image, and no context. It said, what is it? And by the way, if you don't know who P.T. Barnum is, he's the guy from the circus. And if you don't know what a circus is, please Google it because you're making me feel very old and dated. Okay, so the sign said, what is it? And this is something people could not stop talking about. Like, this is documented. They did have language in 1840, so check it out. By the time the attraction actually opened, the lines were around the block. And nobody even knew, what they were going to see, which is hilarious. But the uncertainty was not a problem to solve. It was the thing itself. Barnum understood that the anticipation is more powerful than the announcement, that a question left open is more magnetic than an answer given freely. The human mind has not changed between 1840 and 2026. Now, the platforms are different, but the current running underneath them is identical. This knowledge is all around you if you just dare to look in the right places. You might not be aware of the ways of the world, but these types of tactics and human psychology have influenced public opinion and behavior just long before any of us were watching. If you find yourself interested in these types of things, like studying the mind, human psychology, persuasion, or influence to create a better life for yourself, subscribe to this channel because that is exactly what I'm doing every single week. And to be honest, it's just the beginning of a much larger conversation. See you in the next one.